back to The Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kane.
All right, so here we are. It's a beautiful sunny day and 70 degrees, so super not expectant for this time of the year. And I did everything I could to not cancel my entire schedule and go to the coast and enjoy the weather.
Oh, yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, I could come up with a million excuses.
Vitamin D being number one.
Vitamin
D is essential.
Mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else do I got? I got something else in my pocket.
Sand and toes is a natural, pedicure.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, just
exfoliating,
grounding.
Yes.
All the things. Salt water, so healing.
Oh, you guys. So if
the
you're
list goes on and on.
We're getting close-ish to spring break. So if you need an excuse to go to the beach.
Hit it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Do it.
No excuses.
Oh.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
No excuses?
Excuses.
Okay, I'm full of them.
Boy.
What you need?
Well, Exodus 3. Actually, 3 and 4, because it's the story of Moses when God calls him to basically get his people out of slavery, bring them out of Egypt. Well, Moses, he's got 5 major excuses. So I thought we could kind of go through those.
It gives me hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Bible characters always make me feel good about myself. Or not good, but feel better about myself.
We're in good company.
We're in good company. And I love that God, so we'll talk about God's response to each one of these as well, because it's just so sweet how he responds. So the first one, after God calls him, is basically his first excuse in 3:11. It's well, I'm a nobody.
I'm just a nobody. Yeah.
Who are, I'm nobody. Why would you call me to do this?
Have you ever felt that way?
Totally.
Yes.
All the time. 100%. Think you got the wrong number.
Yeah.
Got the wrong name. You got me confused with somebody else.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But God says, I love this, I will be with you.
Gosh, I love that. I know, you guys, that sounds so basic. But it is the thing that gets me through most days.
Yeah. I mean, you think about how many times, I feel like I need to write these down because often I will use them, not all 5 in a row. I mean, maybe some days.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Maybe some days I do go through the list. But just his promises, I will be with you.
Uh-huh.
And just as simple as that. And then his second excuse was, well, I'm not a theologian.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Sometimes I'm afraid to speak out about something, but then I preface it with, well, I don't know the Bible all that great, but what I read in it is this. You should figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's something that can hinder us for so long, shaking in your boots. Who am I to get up there?
Yeah. What's interesting is you think about it back then. I mean, this is Old Testament. There's no Bible.
Yeah.
For them to read. I don't know how you even, he's just not.
What words did he use there? Do you know?
Well, I only have this translation, so we'd have to look it up in the NIV or something. But basically he's saying I'm not this big, be like somebody saying, well, I'm just not this big Christian. Or I didn't go to, divinity school.
Right.
And God says, I am who I am. Tell the people of Israel, I am sent me to you. Let me tell you something. None of that other stuff matters. I do.
Right.
I am sent you. That is one of the reasons why I never went to divinity school after all those years, because I wanted to be able to stand in front of women and say, I don't have a divinity degree. And I open the Word of God and listen for His voice and hear it. If I can, you can. Because God is God. It's not about us. If we say, well, I can't hear the Word of God, it's well, it's not really up to you. But God is big enough to speak to you.
Well, that's also why I didn't go to divinity school. It had nothing to do with the fact that I absolutely hate school.
I love it.
But God is Yeah, I got lots of thoughts on this. Continue.
Well, I love his next one. It's like, I'm unconvincing. Like, it sort of goes with I'm a nobody. Like, I got nothing. Like, there's nothing special about me. I'm very unconvincing. And God's reply is crazy. He gives him these 3 huge, like, miracle signs that he can use to convince these people that God has called him. And the first one is, he's like, pick up this staff and throw it down, and it turns into a snake. And then he's like, pick up the snake, and then it turns back into a staff. Like, that's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Right? Okay. And then the next one is his hand. And he tells him to put it in his cloak and then bring it back out. And it's like, it looks like the hand of a leper. It's like all diseased and white and ashy. I don't know, scaly.
Oh my gosh.
And then he's like, okay, now put it back in and bring it back out, and it's fine again.
Here's a question.
Uh-huh.
Was that like ever by accident? Like, was that forever? Or was it just when he was standing in front of them? Because, like,
I know. Like, all the time, like, got a little party trick.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that, like, stayed the rest of his life. We'll ask him in heaven, I guess.
Moses, we need to know this.
And then the other one had to do with the Nile. So if he would take water out of the Nile and pour it onto the dirt, then it would basically turn to blood on the ground. So those were 3 pretty big things. He's like, I'm really unconvincing. And God's like, okay, here's 3 big magician tricks. I mean, he didn't say magic, but here's 3 things. Here's 3 miracles. That's more technical, a better word, I guess. So, and the next one is, and I think this kind of goes along with the other one, but he says it again, like, I'm not a preacher. And we'd have to look I should have looked in different translations, but.
Well, tell me what we're looking and I'll look at it.
Exodus 4:10.
Okay.
And, when you think of somebody being a preacher, it's like someone who stands up in front of people. And so I think, when you're not a theologian, you don't really understand maybe God as much and don't have the knowledge. But the preacher part is more of like the leader, the teacher. So they are different in context and skill. You're talking about different skill sets. And so God just says, I'll be right there with you. I'll give you the words and I'll teach you what to say. And so really that's about his speaking and his teaching, his eloquence.
Yeah, it
not
was
his
eloquent,
knowledge.
But I do believe that some people say he actually possibly had a speech impediment.
Yes.
And so that would have been like, really, God, you're going to take this thing that is so embarrassing and you want me to go speak in front of crowds with that? Really? You can't have me just do something else? Can I just run the soundboard?
Yeah, exactly. Can I just sit up here and serve snacks?
Which I love that because that was probably one of Moses' biggest hurdles and
Yes.
God uses it.
Yes. It was his biggest insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does God do that for us? Use our insecurities, Lord.
Well, we kind of talked about that last week. We talked about that last week in our podcast, which really ties in. So Moses has gone through all these superficial things. Like last week we talked about the angry, the I'm hurts, the you're dumbs, the shutdown, all the things. But what really it boils down to is God sort of is like answers all his original excuses. And it kind of gets down to this. Well, I'm just kind of scared I'm just not interested and I'm a little scared.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever been there?
Oh, never.
Oh.
I can't associate with this at all. Yeah, he's like, okay, well, now that you basically taken every other excuse away from me, I'm just going to tell you the truth. Like, and finally he boils it. I'm just scared. And God's reply is basically like, okay, I'm going to send you Aaron, your brother, who is an eloquent speaker, and he will be your spokesman. Like, he will be with you. And I love that so much. And it reminds me so much of my own journey. And just, not just in speaking and, like podcast and writing and all of that, but lots of things in life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel like I have dragged these things out for more, like this is 2 chapters in the Bible. Sometimes I feel like I've dragged my excuses out for like 2 years, 2 years of chapter.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I feel like that right now. Yes.
And then other times it may just be 2 weeks that I drag it out until we get to an answer. And sometimes it's 20 minutes,
Right.
that we work through them really fast, depending on what it is. But that God answers and I listen.
Yes. That's the key, though. He answers, and you probably give him a couple rebuttals, like Moses did.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
even though God is like, seriously, really, fine, here, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yes. Exactly. He's like, and God does get like a little miffed towards
Right.
the end of this, right? Like
Right.
if you read, this is around chapter 4, verses 13, like through 17, and it does, I think, even mention there, like, that God gets a little miffed.
It says, the Lord's anger burned against Moses. That's a little more than miffed.
I know. I was trying. I was covering up for him, but yeah, he gets a little frustrated, as you can imagine. He's like, dude, I've got this job for you. I've literally given you everything you need, and you're still making excuses.
Right?
He's a little miffed. And maybe I said miffed because it's like, I don't really want to think about God being angry with me like that, but I'm sure he has been 100 times. Like, really patient and really funny, and laughs at me a lot, but also really angry sometimes.
It's really interesting.
Still loves me,
Right.
but yeah.
Just thinking about this and going back in my own life and looking, particularly now, at places where I feel like God is showing me that I have not done everything he's asked me to do. And now I need to go back and see what my excuses were.
Interesting. I love that you are so brave to do that.
I mean, I'm a little bit like, ooh, this is going to be, but I do know at the end of the hard stuff is where, you grow, right?
Yes, the good stuff.
Yeah.
It
Interesting.
Is. It is.
Oh. Yikes.
So it offered a lot of self-reflection that I think we could all kind of do today. So think about something in your life that the Lord called you to do.
Yes.
And you did it. Think about that moment for a minute, and then hopefully it's been more than once where you've done that. So you've experienced God's consistency, hopefully.
Yes.
Because you've said yes. And some of you may not be there yet because you're still a little bit timid and afraid, and that's okay. I would encourage you to step out there.
Yeah.
And take a risk with the Lord.
Yes.
Not in spite of or without, but with the Lord. Because as I looked back on these things that he called me to do, that I had a gazillion excuses for, that I was terrified to do, that I was uncomfortable and totally out of my comfort zone, he always did. Like he said, I will be with you. He was always with me.
Yeah.
I mean, he is always with me. I mean, that's the truth. But, when you're taking a step out, we definitely talk about that more, right? Like God showed up. Well, it's like, well, of course he's always with you. But it feels more tangible and relevant and prevalent when we're out there taking that step. It's like, oh, okay, he really was.
And you're looking for him.
And you're really looking for him.
If you're anything like me when you're doing something wild, you're like, all right, God, here I am. Remember? You said do this? Okay, look at me doing it. Hello.
Yes, exactly. Here I am. He's like, I know, I'm right here. But I love that too. Like he never leaves us. And then another thing that I really was so overcome by was how much that I was blessed by stepping out of my comfort zone and following him. And I don't mean like with monetary blessings or material blessings,
applause or fame.
No, but with the people that I met, with the moments that we shared, and seeing him at work, not just in me, but other people. And in the crowd and in those moments and the people that I had the opportunity to pray for, I mean, the stories I have are unbelievable. And then the way that it has grown my faith.
I was going to say that is the biggest blessing of all. Yeah.
Whoa. By like 100-fold. Because it's like, take the step, he catches you, lifts you through, and you're like, wow. Blows my mind.
Yeah.
And then So it's like, then I asked myself though, what if all that is true? And it is.
Yes. I
Then
know what you're going to say.
Why am I still so reluctant to just jump right in every single time? No excuses.
Yep.
Just jumping in. Happy as a clam to do it.
Because it's always a different part of your uncomfortable zone that he's pushing you into, right?
Yes.
He's always like,
Yes.
oh, great. So I'm glad you liked that pool. Let's go over here where the waves are a little bigger.
Yes. We've conquered that. So, that it was interesting to go through that process and then ask myself that question. So hopefully you'll ask that question of yourself today. And I really came to the conclusion that it kind of goes back to what my public speaking coach 17 years ago told me, Grover. He said, if you ever get comfortable standing up in front of that crowd, something's wrong.
Oh. Yes.
If you're ever like not nervous or a little bit like, or counting on the Lord, something's wrong. And I remember that, and it was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because I do become more obedient because I see the blessings and I trust the Lord more and more. But I'm still human. So no shame or guilt should come into that.
Right.
I should pay attention to it. I should ask questions about it to see where it's coming from. But that's where I'm supposed to be, reliant on the Lord, trusting and obedient in Him, not jumping ahead of the curve and before His plan to make all the things happen and to do all the things, but to follow Him and then trust Him and to always be a little, this is a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was just thinking today on my walk, I was like, when is the last time I was uncomfortable? And so when I start questioning that, it means that I probably am not doing something I'm supposed to be doing, A. And I was also thinking, when have I been challenged? I need to be challenged, because if we're the smartest one in the room, which I'm not saying that's the case, thank God, but so many times we could get very comfortable being the smartest one in the room, the most capable one in the room. And if that's you, then you essentially have decided you've gone far enough in life.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so...
And there's a safety net there because you feel like, if you're only with those other people where you feel the smartest or the best or the most capable, it's like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. And I literally went through this exercise this morning. Okay, where do I need to be challenged? Where am I not challenged? Am I? And like I said, thank God it was like, no, you're not the smartest one in the room. Don't worry. You're not the most savvy. But if that's you, move.
Wow.
Because on this side of heaven, we will never reach our full capacity.
So true.
Right? And so you're essentially saying, even though God died for me so I could do this and He gave me all these gifts, I'm just going to give Him this percentage of them because I'm really comfortable where I am. And so oftentimes we trade out our blessings and actually, being used for God for our comfort. And so, God is getting ready to, stretch me again. I see it coming. It's coming down the path for me too. And so I've been working really hard on that. But, like I can go back in my journal, like you talked about. So it's so important to keep a journal and look back and see where God was faithful. And that's when you're writing to Him and reminding Him, I remember when you did this, God. And I know you're going to do it again. And while you're telling Him that, you're convincing yourself of that again too.
Yes. Did you come up with a time when you were uncomfortable? Like the most recent time when you were uncomfortable? Or was it just kind of a rhetorical question that came up for that moment for you to sit with and to ponder?
It is. I think it's just like the very, I have that question initially and then I'll just unpack it as we go. But I definitely feel like God is, saying, hey, and I think we've talked about this before, when are you going to take possession of the land I've given you?
Right.
And so that's been an interesting question for me. Like, where am I not responding boldly or fully showing up? And I think that's what it is for me, is not fully showing up with all my capability. And I don't mean like, oh my gosh, I'm God's gift to everybody and they should just listen to what I say. Not at all. But am I giving my all, or am I playing it safe? And I think what I came back with today was I'm playing it safe in too many areas.
Gotcha.
So watch out, world.
Watch out. I think my most uncomfortable moment recently was when I did the Facebook Live
Yes.
talk.
Yes.
If you've been around the podcast long, you know I'm not on Facebook. I haven't been on for 20 years. Anyway, and I love to be with people.
Right.
I like to make eye contact with people. So, and I move around a little bit, a lot. And I talk with my hands. So to sit in a chair looking at a dot so that you're making eye contact instead of scanning the room and looking at people's eyes, and, a live thing on Facebook where I'm not even on Facebook, so out of my comfort zone.
Right.
I mean, it was like, what am I actually... I even said to Melissa, I'm like, okay, next time this happens, I'm just going to send this one to you. And she's like, no, you're not, because God called you to that.
That's right. Yes. But how many times did we do that?
Yes. So many.
Yep.
Yeah. But I did it, and it was such a blessing.
Yep.
And the woman who organized it, Pastor Elaine, was such a gift. And we had an incredible conversation after we weren't on Facebook Live anymore, over Zoom or whatever. And it was such a blessing and such a treat. And so there again, I was obedient. Would I have been fine if it had been canceled? 150%.
But what would you have missed out on?
So many things.
Right. Yeah. You guys, God does not just allow us to be obedient and then just kick us on the way out the gate.
Right.
And sometimes when we're obedient, it doesn't go as we think it should go.
So true. It doesn't always work out sunshine and roses.
Right. But at the end of the day, you're always still a better person at the end of it.
Yeah.
You've always grown somehow.
We've learned. We've trusted. Yes. And there's hope for better.
Yep.
in the future. Anyway, think about, this is such a great question. When was the last time you were uncomfortable? And in a healthy way, you know what I mean?
Right.
And if you haven't been lately, what should you do about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe take that before the Lord and sit with him with that question. And go through these excuses once again with the Lord and consider, what excuses am I using?
I love
Which
that.
one do I fall back onto? And work through all of them. Maybe you have a specific thing that you're just giving God excuse after excuse after excuse. Sit with him and get down to the nitty gritty, to the real reason, to the fear, to the pride, to the insecurity, to the lie.
Girl,
Get
just
down
call
to
it.
that.
To the lie.
To the lie. Hey, thanks for joining us this week on The Sinner and the Saint.